Catalonia is a region in the northeast of Spain. It is partially autonomous, but in recent years, independence sentiments have risen among many Catalans. In fact, Carles Puigdemont, the former leader of the regional government, challenged Madrid and called for a referendum. I'm Hud Abdelhamid in Barcelona. I'm at the Palau de la Generalitat, Catalonia's executive office. I came here over 2 years ago to discuss with President Carles Puigdemont his plan for independence. This is what he told me then.
No hi ha un conflicte social, és un conflicte polític entre un estat espanyol que no entén que Catalunya és una nació, que té dret a decidir i que ja s'ha cansat dels incompliments de l'estat i de que per poder ser espanyol hagis de renunciar a ser català.
The unofficial referendum went ahead on October 1st, 2017, and the conflict indeed escalated. There was a violent police crackdown with batons and rubber bullets used against voters. But when the ballots were counted, Puigdemont claimed an overwhelming victory for secession, even though less than half of the registered voters in Catalonia took part in the referendum.
El mandat del poble que Catalunya esdevingui un estat independent en forma de república.
Puigdemont then announced Catalonia's independence from Spain on October 27, 2017, but the declaration was suspended just 8 seconds later, and instead he invited Madrid to open a dialogue. The invitation was rebuffed as Madrid considered the referendum illegal, and the then Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy invoked constitutional powers and fired Puigdemont and his cabinet. The deposed Catalan president fled to Belgium. Members of his government were taken into custody, including Puigdemont's number 2, Oriol Junqueras. He was sentenced to 13 years for sedition and misuse of public funds. In May 2018, Catalonia's parliament elected Quim Torra, a close ally of Puigdemont, as the new president. Torra has continued with the pro-independence agenda. The Spanish Electoral Authority demanded he take down all separatist symbols from the government's headquarters. He did so, but only after a court deadline had expired. Torra is now expected to be tried for disobedience on November 18th. While pro-independence protests continue in Catalonia, Spain held a general election last week. The focal point for many candidates was the political crisis here. Now, Pedro Sanchez's Socialist Party emerged winner, but the far-right Vox Party also made substantial gain. So what does that mean for Catalonia looking forward? And what does the future hold for President Torra after his upcoming appearance in court? The president of the Catalan regional government, Quim Torra, talks to Al Jazeera. Quim Torra, president of the regional government of Catalonia, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for being here.
2 years ago, I was in this same building doing an interview with your predecessor, Carles Puigdemont. And after that, many things happened, the referendum and all the turmoil that followed. In hindsight, could things have happened differently?
Yes, things could happen differently, but we are where we are now. We are, after 2 years, there are half of the previous government, of President Puigdemont in jail. The other half, with the same President Puigdemont, are in exile. The repression continues. So the situation now is very complicated. I think that is grave. Is something that we are putting on the table every day to the Spanish government. I'm trying to talk with the President Sanchez every day, saying, okay, the situation is grave, the people is angry because, you know, there was this sentence against our colleagues with 100 years of prison for them, so we have to come back to what is the essence of the conflict of Catalonia, that we have to find a political solution for this political issue, that the Catalans want to decide by themselves their own future.
Many pro-independence Catalans I spoke to who fully back the cause have been telling me that they didn't understand why there was a declaration of independence that lasts, as they say, 8 seconds and then was revoked. And maybe that has actually harmed your cause rather than advance it.
You have to take in consideration that the repression has been really very tough, that always the Spanish government has been attacking every decision that the Parliament of Catalonia took then. That, and above all, what is important, seeing back what we did 2 years ago, is that all the decisions that the Parliament of Catalonia took in those days, they took it democratically, by the majority of the seats of the chamber. So it was a democratic process with a democratic solution.
Now, let's come to today. You just said that you've been trying to speak every day to the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez. Have you been trying to reach out to him since the elections took place on November 10th?
The same night of these elections, I tried again to put in contact with him. It was not possible. The day after, I tried again to phone him. He was busy.
So if he picks up the phone and answers you, I'm sure you would tell him something more than let's sit and talk. You would have some sort of offer on the table or some sort of idea to put forward. What would be that idea?
Yes, of course. I think that the first thing that we have to put on the table is that there's going to be a negotiation without any conditions. From the Catalan side, the government side, we are going to put on the table what we think that could be a solution for the conflict, that is an agreed referendum, internationally validated, in order to give to the Catalan people to say if they want to be independent or not. And we strongly encourage the government of Spain to put their solution in this table of negotiation. In that way, these negotiations can start.
But isn't that somehow a non-starter? Because he has been very clear that he won't go against the Constitution, that the referendum is not on the table. So where will be that meeting point?
Well, first we have to read the proposal of the government of Spain. I insist, we've never heard anything about that during this year and a half. So is Spain going to give to the Catalans the opportunity to decide by themselves their own future or not? But this is the question, you know? What is the proposal of Spain for Catalonia?
Okay, independence seems the ultimate goal and probably the most difficult one to achieve, also because you also need to know whether the majority of the Catalans want it or not. And at the moment, if we look at the results of elections, it's not sure. What else would you accept? Would you accept more autonomy, some sort of economic arrangement? What would be acceptable for you?
I can't answer you that because, as I told you, there's never have been a proposal from Spain. We don't know what Spain is offering us as a starting point of this negotiation, you know? And that's the point, is this question you have to ask to Mr. Sanchez. What is Spain going to offer to Catalonia to start these negotiations? I'm not going to start a negotiation just for a photo. No. This has to be a serious negotiation with an international mediator or relator, just to give, you know, a formality to these negotiations between two governments, the government of Spain and the government of Catalonia, sitting together and finding and giving a political solution to the Catalan people and also to the Spanish people. This is not anymore an internal conflict of Spain. Is a conflict of Europe. It's a conflict of a nation that want to give to the people the right to decide their future by themselves.
You said you're still trying to have a phone conversation with the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez.
Yeah.
He is in a difficult position because he doesn't have a majority to form a coalition. So the Catalan parties could play a role in that, couldn't they?
Yes, absolutely. I think that after these 4 months, this period between the previous elections and the last elections of last Sunday, he even depends more than the independentist parties than before. And what we are going to ask Mr. Sanchez, okay, obviously, end of repression, to sit together in this table of negotiations with no conditions. That means that we are going to put on the table this referendum, this right of Catalonia to self-determination, and we want to ask Mr. Sanchez for the amnesty, for our colleagues in prison.
So you have a long list of demands, and do you feel that this is a time maybe where, because of his political situation, you could get more of a chance to be listened to?
This is nothing that his new party in the government, Unidas Podemos, defended. Unidas Podemos in Catalonia has defended that political prisoners should be free. They have defended a referendum for Catalonia, and they have defended the amnesty for the political prisoners. So if now this party is going to be part of the government of Spain, I think that we are very close to this solution.
If you look at the results of the elections for Catalonia, the Proindependence parties got 23 seats out of the 48. So not the majority.
No.
Yet the way you speak, you feel quite confident that you are stronger than before the elections.
Yes, because we have added more votes. We have won more members of the chambers. And if you add to these 23 the 7 new members of the chamber of Unidas Podemos, and then there's 30 members of the chamber that are defending these 3 points: amnesty, referendum, and end of repression. So 30 from is much more than 23. So I think that this is something that Pedro Sanchez and Pablo Iglesias, they have to take in consideration. I presume that Mr. Iglesias and their colleagues from Catalonia, they are not going to forget their promises in the last campaign.
Do you feel that this is a moment of historical opportunity for the Catalan cause?
Absolutely, not only for Catalan, I think for Spain as well, and even for Europe. I think that is an historical moment to really build altogether a big consensus, a consensus based on freedom, and a consensus based on human rights, civil and social rights.
And what would you do with those Catalans who are not favoring independence, who could be a slight majority?
Well, the better way to know which part is the majority in Catalonia is to count. So using a democratic tool as a referendum, letting the people knowing what they want, is the best way to know if the people of Catalonia want to be independent or not.
And if all this doesn't work, if Pedro Sanchez says no, there will be no referendum, you won't get any of your demands, what would you do next?
Well, we will vote no in that case, and it will depend again on the decisions that could take Mr. Sanchez. 4 months ago, he had many opportunities to build up a government oriented to one side or to another. Well, he decided to go to elections, and now after these elections, we've become stronger. Well, he will decide.
Europe didn't really embrace the cause, did it? It sort of kept a little bit on the margins, in the sense you probably, when Mr. Puigdemont went to Brussels, he probably expected more pressure coming from Brussels on the government in Madrid. That didn't really happen.
We are a little bit disappointed by the position of the European Union, but from the other side was the people, was the citizens of Europe. And we feel very close to this Europe that is the Europe that we feel ourselves committed. That's Europe of fraternity, the Europe of solidarity, the Europe that helps every people of the world to be free if they want.
Okay, but it's a Europe that's also having a lot of problem with the rise of the far right, which happened also in Spain. And one could say that part of this rise of the Vox party was also the Catalonia issue. They talked about it over and over again in their campaign, and they rallied an incredible amount of support for that.
Absolutely, and this is something terrible, something terrible. In fact, this is maybe the worst problem that Spain has now, the rise of the fascism in Spain. And when you see the results of the general elections last Sunday, you see how important is Vox in Spain, but how few important is Vox in Catalonia. You know, so who has the problem with Vox? The rest of Spain, not Catalonia. And we urge the political parties in Spain to find a solution for this very critical issue.
Okay, moving on. There were calls from the streets coming for Spain to sit and talk, which is basically the mantra of this online group, Tsunami, Democratic. Do you know who's behind it?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's really very surprising what has happened with this movement, organization, because we don't know exactly what is Tsunami Democratic, but what we see is that there are many, many people following this movement. They say that they are acting using the disobedience, but always with the non-violence.
I'm asking you this because your party, Junts Catalonia, has also talked about digital independence. And it seems that this democratic tsunami is about this digital independence. So I'm just wondering, what kind of link is there?
No, I think that there's no link at all between my party or even the government is doing with Tsunami Democratic. That is something apart. We don't know who is behind. We don't know what they are going to do in the future, as we didn't know what were their plans in the past.
So you're absolutely sure that Democratic Tsunami has no link or no backing whatsoever from Catalan leaders? Because it seems, you know, that their protests sort of start and end quite conveniently depending on a political agenda, which usually when there's street protests and pressure, grassroots protests, usually it goes on unlimited.
I can tell you that I had no clue of what they wanted to do and what is going to be the next act of Tsunami Democratic. No idea. And I think that no one in this country knows it.
But that, on the other hand, could be quite dangerous. I mean, if you have a shadowy group online who nobody knows who it is or how it's funded, who can mobilize people on the street, that could backfire as well.
Yeah, but what we are, after these weeks, and reading the statements of Tsunami Democratic, their positions in their communications, etc., I think that the people is feeling that this is a democratic movement, that there's no violence at all, that they want to push for this idea of a Spain sit and talk, always democratically involved. I think that people is feeling that. So at least at this point, people is considering that is something very close to them.
Because we asked many of the protesters who is behind
and what
democratic tsunami. Some said, we don't know. Others said, the same people who organized the referendum in 2017. So there is that belief on the street.
Really, no idea at all. No idea at all. Because nobody told me anything about Tsunami Democratic. Okay, now you were talking about the protesters, that they were non-violent, but there have been some rioting. And you came maybe under criticism for being a bit slow in condemning that violence. Why did it take you so long? The opposition, and because we were in this election process, the opposition uses this as an argument just to say, okay, President Torra is not condemning violence. I did it several times and I repeat it. The violence is not compatible with the independence process of Catalonia. It doesn't represent us. Most of the protests have been non-violence, especially these last few days. But following the sentencing of the 9 Catalan leaders, which enraged a lot of people here, there were scenes of violence. And we spoke to people and they said, you might have been a bit harsh with the police, with the Mossos, the Catalan police, putting a bit of the blame on them rather than giving them the political cover that a regional president should. The Catalan police has all my support, but obviously, as everybody saw, there were some images that really shocked us, and that what I said was that probably all these images were out of the protocols that the police should follow. And what I said, and what I strongly believe, just because to return the confidence of the people of Catalonia to our police, is that in that cases, these cases should be investigated just to know exactly if we followed the protocols and the good practices that should be followed by the police or not. And would you consider declaring independence again? The independence of Catalonia will come. I think that is something that nobody will stop it, okay? But now it's time to build all the independentist parties in Catalonia a very strong agreement based in the points of freedom, amnesty, and how we are going to exercise again our right of self-determination. When the independentist movement is saying we are going to do it again, that is something that in the street you will hear. Okay, we say yes, of course, and we are going to exercise the right of self-determination again. But we have learned something of this previous year, that to point a data is, maybe is not the best way to do the thing. So the idea is, okay, let's be stronger, let's build up this great consensus between all of us, and let's go then with this horizon of exercising our right of self-determination. Quim Torra, President of the Catalan Regional Government, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to explain what is the situation in Catalonia, and really is a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you.